So in this video, we're going to review how to multiply binomials. So remember, a monomial is a number variable or the product of a number and one or more variables. So you can see here we have some examples of monomials and we have some examples of things that are not monomials. Remember that a polynomial is a monomial or the sum or difference of two or more monomials. Binomials, which we'll be talking about in this lesson, are polynomials that have two terms in them. So also remember we have the product property of exponents. If we're multiplying two terms together that have the same base, then we go ahead and add together the exponents. So remember, when you're doing these problems, to be careful because coefficients and variables will follow different rules. When we're working with exponent problems, we're going to focus on the coefficients separately from the variables because the coefficients will follow the rules of multiplication, division, whatever we're doing in the problem, but the exponents will follow our special exponent rule. So here's method 2. So method 2 is to use the distributive property, and this is a good method to know because it can actually be used to multiply any polynomials. So that's a limitation of FOIL. FOIL can be used only on binomials, so it's good to know the distributive property because you can actually use it to multiply any polynomials. So what you do is you distribute each term of the first binomial to the second, and then multiply and then combine like terms to simplify. So what we would do is we take this x plus 4 times x plus 5, and then we're going to break apart this first binomial. Okay, so you see it's going to be x times x plus 5 plus 4 times x plus 5. So each term of the first multiplies the second. And then all we need to do is do the multiplication. So x times x will give me x squared, plus x times 5 is going to be 5x, plus 4 times x gives me 4x, and then plus 4 times 5 gives me 20. So notice that the middle terms, the 5x and 4x, are like terms that I can go ahead and combine. So that's going to give me x squared plus 9x plus 20 as my final answer. So when we multiply binomials using the distributive property, we're going to start off by distributing each term in the first binomial to the second. Remember to distribute the sign in front of the term along with it. Then we're going to multiply, and remember to use the product rule for terms with exponents. So remember, when we have exponents, we need to add them together. So combine any like terms to simplify the final expression. So let's try multiplying x minus 6 times x plus 2. So I'm going to take every term in the first binomial and distribute it to the second. So I'm going to get x times x plus 2, and then that minus 6, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that, so minus 6 times x plus 2. So remember that trick we used when we were subtracting polynomials and we rewrote that subtraction as addition of the opposite? I think that's helpful when we're trying to do the distributive property. So I'm going to rewrite this as plus negative 6 times x plus 2. Because that just helps me keep track of that negative sign when I'm going ahead and distributing. So I'm going to get the terms x squared plus 2x plus negative 6 times x is going to be negative 6x plus negative 6 times 2, which is negative 12. So we have x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 12. Now notice the two middle terms are like terms that we can go ahead and combine. So I'm going to get x squared, 2x minus 6x is minus 4x, and then minus 12. So that is our final answer. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try doing this problem on your own. So here we're going to take x plus 4 and distribute both of those terms to x minus 3. So that gives us x times x minus 3 plus 4 times x minus 3. When we distribute, we get x squared minus 3x plus 4 minus 12. So the middle terms of minus 3x and plus 4x will combine to 1x that we can just write as x. So we have x squared plus x minus 12. So let's try now this example. So we have 6x plus 1 times 3x minus 5. So I'm going to take every term in the first binomial and distribute it to the second. So we have 6x times 3x minus 5 plus 1 times 3x minus 5. So let's go ahead now and distribute. So we have 6x times 3x, which gives us 18x squared. 6x times 5, so we have minus 30x. And then the second binomial is just getting multiplied by 1, right? So that means we don't really change anything. We can just basically write down 3x minus 5. So now notice these two middle terms are like terms that we can go ahead and combine. So we have 18x squared minus 30x plus 3x is going to be minus 27x. And then we have minus 5. So that's going to be our final answer. So now let's try this example. So we have 2x minus 3 times x plus 7. So once again, I'm going to take every term in the first binomial and distribute it to the second. So we have 2x times x plus 7, and then minus 3 times x plus 7. So I'm going to use that trick since I have this minus sign right here, and I'm going to rewrite this subtraction as addition of the opposite. So I have 2x times x plus 7 plus negative 3 times x plus 7. So now I'm going to distribute. 2x times x gives me 2x squared, plus 2x times 7 gives me 14x, plus negative 3 times x gives me negative 3x, plus negative 3 times 7 gives me negative 21. So when I rewrite this, I have 2x squared plus 14x minus 3x minus 21, because all I'm doing is combining those plus negatives into subtraction signs. Notice that these two middle terms are like terms, so I have 2x squared plus 14x minus 3x is 11x, and then minus 21. So that's going to be our final answer. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try doing this example on your own. So we're going to take that 3x minus 2 and distribute it to x plus 5. So we have 3x times x plus 5 minus 2 times x plus 5. 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times 5 gives me 15x. When I distribute that 2, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that negative with it. So, you can think about this as a plus negative. So that's going to give me minus 2x and then minus 10. So when I do that, these two middle terms, the 15x minus 2x will combine, which gives me 13x. So I have 3x squared plus 13x minus 10. So remember, you can multiply binomials using FOIL or the distributive property. Remember to always combine like terms to simplify the final expression.